This is Jason Tremblay, and I'm going to take you through the coach dashboard in my athlete management system 8th edition. So picking up where we left off, in the last video, we covered how to set up the file and configure the settings for programming. And in this video, we're going to go into creating the annual plan. So the first thing that I do when I start working with a client is I get their dates. So we agreed that February 21st was going to be our start date in the last video. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to enter in the next competition or goal date. And to do that, I'm going to go down to just beneath this orange line. So we have 5 indexes here, and indexes are going to be countdowns showing how many weeks out you are. So I'm going to go just below this orange line. I'm going to enter in the equal key, and any cell that I click on my screen now, it's going to be equals that cell. And so this cell down here is going to display the values. So let's do something like sometime around the time of IPF World. Say, I don't remember if this is the exact date or not. We'll do equals cell V8. So on Friday, June 17th, we're going to have a competition. And then we're going to start preparing for that, equals cell F4. And so now you see in the F column, we are 17 weeks out. In the G column, we are 16 weeks out, and so on and so forth. Each column carries on into the actual week of training below. So I think this is a really nice way of organizing an athlete's training, and you have multiple of these, right? So let's say after a little transition phase for another index, we have nationals in September. And then let's say this European athlete. So to end the year, they have, after another short transition phase, they have Europeans. So now we have 3 indexes. This is index 1, index 2, index 3, and you have the countdown below. So the next thing I'll do is I'll plan out the training that I can, and this training is subject to change, right? But I think if you don't have a plan in place for when you're going to be training at certain volumes or certain intensities, if you follow this type of training approach, it could be easy to not be on schedule doing the type of training that the client needs to be doing in order to achieve the physiological or psychological adaptations that you're aiming for. And so this is why I like to have an annual training plan. And quite often I'll actually start off with the taper week if I'm getting ready for a competition. So in my training system, we have 4 types of microcycles. You have an introductory microcycle, which is I is going to symbolize that. You have a build microcycle, and then you have an attack microcycle. I classify microcycles based on the RP. So anything within the 6 or lower, I'm going to call it an introductory microcycle. And anything that's like between 6 and 7 RP for work sets, I'm going to call it a build microcycle. And anything that's 8 or 9 RP for work sets, I'm going to call it an attack microcycle. The recover microcycle is different. That's going to be a taper or a deload. R symbolizes recover, A symbolizes attack. Let's say that we're going to do so we're going to have 4 weeks of loading, right? Build, attack, 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 and then recover. And I consider the build and attack weeks to be loading weeks. So this will be our competition phase. So now I'm going to merge that cell. And then let's say I also want to have quite a bit of loading with strength training. So this will be our development phase, and we've got 5 loading weeks here. So it's quite a long training phase. And this will allow us to really train intermuscular and intramuscular coordination in the 85 to 90% range for quite a long period of time to help develop the athlete for competition. And then this is just going to be a preparatory phase. So let's say we're introducing them to training. So I would call that preparatory 1. And then I'm going to merge all of this space, and I'm going to call it Macrocycle 1, and then square bracket IPF World Championship preparation. And maybe after we want to say, you know, well, this is 17 weeks of preps. That's a really long time. Maybe we want to give the athlete a week off. Or maybe we just want to put them right into a transition phase. So we'll do a 3-week transition phase. So I'll call that transition 1. And it'll be intro, build only. And then we'll get into our next preparatory phase. So let's do something like an intro, build, attack, recover. Or maybe we'll want to shorten that like such. And then we'll just dive right into a competition phase, because this is the least important competition of our year. Worlds is most important. Europeans is second most important. And actually, I'll call that preparatory 2 now, because we've already done preparatory 1 and competition 1. Let's actually start our European prep right away, because we are going to want to get going on this training if we're going to hit personal bests on our meet December 3rd. But we'll do something like this to end our competitive year. This will be competition 3. And this is actually not really going to be a preparatory phase. It's just going to be a development phase, because we're going to be training in the 80 to 90% range. So it's going to be more of a focus on strength training. It'll be kind of like a hybrid of preparatory and development training. And then we'll end out the year with a long transition phase to help the athlete physically and mentally regenerate before we get on to preparatory training, just start getting ready for the new year. The preparatory training period is a really underrated or undervalued training period in powerlifting. I think a lot of people just train for maximum strength year round, and you neglect the benefits of having that time to build up your work capacity and load tolerance and get ready to train harder in the next prep. So it's something that's quite valuable in our training approach. So that's a year of training, and then we'll put this together. Say this is Macrocycle 2, nationals preparation, and then this is Macrocycle 3, European Championships preparation, and then this is just a general preparation period. Okay, so the next thing we could do, sometimes you can use frequency. So if you're using frequency, something I would do is I would say, okay, I'm going to squat 3 times per week, bench 4 times per week, deadlift 2 times per week, like that. But I like using scheme, and for scheme, I just put the intensity or the RP of the heaviest day of the week, because I use a daily undulating periodization scheme. But in the week cell. So for example, for the final week of prep, maybe we're doing 97.5%. Before we're doing 95, 92.5, 90. you kind of get the point of how we're structuring this. And then let's say we're starting with 80. So you see, starting at like a low to medium intensity and then working up to a very high intensity. Let's say, obviously in the meet, we're going for 100s. That's the highest intensity. And then in the taper, you could do 70, 75, or the transition period, sorry, 70, 75, 80. And then you can, if this prep went well, maybe you can shift the curve and just kind of repeat the preparatory period that you did and the competition period that you did. If there's some changes that you want to make, you can make that for the rest of the year. We're not going to peak that hard for this meet. Actually, we're going to do more of a volume-based peak. So a nice short preparatory period that's kind of also a development period. But we're really easing into training here. That's why I call it a preparatory training phase. Let's do higher intensity preparing for Europeans, because doing more volume at more intensity is likely to help an athlete achieve greater strength gains than doing low intensity or low volume. So you got to push, especially with higher level athletes. So let's do this. And then afterwards, take our time. I do like to get back up to the 85% range by the end of a long transition phase, just because detraining can occur quite quickly. And then you can maybe assess their strength to see where it's at, see if strength has gone down a little bit from peak levels before you start training, calibrate the training further. Now, because we're in a general preparation period, let's make the last day of training super duper light. So 75%, maybe you're doing sets of 8. And then we'll transition towards higher intensities of training later on in the general preparation period, or the volume macro cycle. Down here is notes, so you can write down any important notes for the phase. For the sake of brevity in this video, I won't do that. But this is how I configured my client training plans. Everything is subject to change. Go back through. Maybe you decided to repeat a week because they need more time to adapt to a certain load range, or maybe you decided to taper early because something came up. Just go through, adjust the plan as the year goes on. Otherwise, this is what it's going to look like for a client of the Strength Guys.